Tonight we're going to be looking at the Sig Sauer P226 Legion, and if you're not familiar with the P226 line of pistols, it is a double single action pistol that is prized in both military and law enforcement communities and has quite a following amongst civilians as well. And so the hallmark of the Legion series is generally going to be the best of everything that they offer. In this case, it has the SRT trigger, which is a very crisp, well-defined light trigger with a very, very short reset. It's had a number of changes to the controls to make the controls even more ergonomic and usable. It's wearing cooler grips that you can't buy. It's got a lovely PVD finish that it has this kind of cool gray color, and depending on the lighting you look at it in, it comes across as gray and almost a flat dark earth. And sometimes it reads as just a black with an interesting sheen, but it is a very cool color that's only available on the Legion. And of course, it sports a Legion roll mark, as you can see on the top of the slide, as well as on the sides of the grips. Before we go any deeper, go ahead and hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you are subscribed, share the channel with some friends. Honestly, the best thing you can do is sharing the videos with your personal network, as the algorithm is very undependable. So if you find value in this video, share it with a friend. If you want to take the next step in supporting my work, you can support me over on Patreon. You can check that out in the link in the description. And if you don't already, follow me on Instagram. I can actually post discount codes and things like that that YouTube doesn't allow me to post over here. So follow me there if you're not already. So before we actually review the pistol, we need to decide what the mission of the pistol is, and the P226 is a duty gun. As such, its use should inform its features. It should have a usable set of sights, it should have a decent-ish trigger, and most importantly, it should be durable and very reliable, which was probably the most important things for a duty pistol. Because this is the Legion series, we need to hold it to a bit of a higher standard where it just needs to be doing everything better than the base model. And quality, of course, comes with a price, and the Legion is no exception. It's about $300 more expensive than the base model, coming in at just over about $1,300. So what can you expect that extra money to buy you? Obviously, the finish is a color that is only available on the Legion model, as well as the unique roll mark on top of the slide. Comes with custom G10 grips that you cannot buy online, with the Legion logo embedded right there on either side of them. And the reduced controls, which is actually a feature I really appreciate, because on other P226s, I've always not liked how my support hand kind of got right onto the controls, and these ones stay out of the way really well. The sights are SIG X-ray night sights, so out of the box you have a pretty usable set of sights. And then there's all the other Legion stuff, the cool kids club that you get to join, and the challenge coin, and the interesting gun rugs that they come with, and the fancy case, all that stuff. Now, I may make fun of the Legion Club, but honestly, all of the guys I know who have Legions have gotten a lot of value out of being a member of that club in the form of merchandise or potentially magazines. Just having a customer service person work with you who can actually make your life better is a real feature, and I wish other firearms companies would have this concierge type level of service. And as we touched on, the SRT trigger, but that's not only on the Legion, it's on other high-end P226 models as well. So all of that said, I do believe that the Legion does substantiate the asking price of $300 over a baseline model. But what you really probably care about is the shooting experience. Now, P226s are known for being soft shooters, and the Legion is no different in this regard. The formula that makes the P226 such a soft shooter is that the grip is very, very wide. So it spreads out all the force across your palm very good from the recoil. And that wide grip planting in your hand really well is very well shaped. The ergonomics of the gun are very good. It feels like it needs to feel. It's wide where it's supposed to be wide, and it is skinny where it needs to be skinny to allow you access to all the controls and have a pretty good trigger reach still. Now, the P226 is going to be heavier than a polymer gun, but it only tips the scale at about 30 ounces without a magazine, which surprised me was a few ounces less than my CZ75, which came in about 3 ounces heavier than this Legion in this particular trim. And that's obviously coming from the steel frame on the CZ versus the alloy frame on the Legion. And the reason I bring up the CZ is because, similar to the CZ, there are full-length rails inside the frame so that the slide and frame are in contact constantly as the slide cycles. But one thing working against the SIG is the bore axis. This actually has a pretty high bore axis. And you can see in the B-roll as I take the CZ and put it next to it, the bore axis is significantly lower in the CZ. So what ends up happening is you get a gun that's very bouncy and wobbly. So it's probably losing some of its energy in recoil by bouncing up and down, as you can see in the slow-mo. But it comes back to zero very well. So the gun is bouncy, but the slide almost feels sluggish, which makes it really predictable and easy to be able to shoot rapidly. So all in all, while the bore axis is supposed to be a negative about this gun, it makes it so easy to time and shoot rapid accurately that I would call it a neutral, if not maybe a slight positive, because many guns don't track as uniformly and predictably as the 226 does. So I was having great luck shooting this rapidly at the range. So as far as reliability is concerned, it ate everything I threw at it, which was only a diet of a few hundred of my reloads, which are 125 grain with projectiles moving at about 1060 foot per second, which equates to almost just like a American Eagle 124 grain load. Now, the owner of the pistol has been shooting this pistol a lot, and he has reported nothing but reliability, and the only issues he have been ammo related. And that's pretty common these days. Most service pistols are able to boast that track record. The ejection of the gun is pretty good. At 6 to 8 feet, it'll throw brass off to the right in a pretty consistent pattern, which is what you want. And as it is a double single gun, it has restrike capability, which is a very great way to make ammo go off if it's not going off. And another thing that I just found interesting about the gun is when the hammer is released, it's not in contact with the firing pin, which makes it drop safe, which is a pretty clever design, whereas the CZ design, when the hammer has fallen, it rests in contact with the firing pin. And the SIG X-Ray night sights are a pretty good set of sights. They've got a blacked out target rear with a high visibility green front, all three with the 3-dot tritium lamp configuration. If you're the type of person who runs out and puts night sights on all of their pistols, then you're going to love these sights. And the green front sight really does do a good job of catching your eye in lowish light settings. I was shooting at about dusk with this gun, and the green front sight really stood out to my eye. Now, the downside is I'm not somebody who puts night sights on guns. I'm somebody who puts target sights on guns, and these are not as precise as my typical Dawson Precision target sights. So if this were my gun, I probably still would swap the sights out for some Dawson Precision sights. And the reason I say that is the front sight on these sights is very, very fat, which makes precision a little bit harder. And to have a gun that is as accurate as this pistol and not be able to use the sights very precisely is very frustrating to me. So yeah, I would be sending Dave Dawson money yet again for sights if this was my pistol. Now, as far as the point of impact for the ammo that I was shooting, which was that 125 grain load I told you about, the impacts were somewhere between the middle tritium lamp and the top of the sight post. It was not truly at the top of the sight post. So if I was taking 10-yard headshots, I would have to hold the top of the front sight at the top perf of the A zone, and the impacts were kind of hitting right in the middle of the upper A zone when I would have that hold. But for people who aren't going to require extreme accuracy, be shooting at significantly long distances, or if you're just primarily motivated by self-defense and home defense, those kinds of things, these sights are very, very good. Now we're going to talk about ergonomics, and I'm going to take you down to the mat. Now, as far as ergonomics are concerned, the P226 is a very ergonomic pistol. It is very wide across the back of the grip, which, as mentioned, spreads out the recoil very well across your palm. The beaver tail that they've included on the Legion as kind of a bonus feature, it's usually on like the stainless elite guns, is very well situated. And it keeps your skin where it's supposed to be, not in the way of the slide or the hammer, so that is quite comfortable. The trigger guard is relieved under here. It's a very broad, there's no hot spots or burrs. And the front strap has this little bit of checkering, as does the back strap as part of the grip module there. So it actually has pretty good grip in that regard. Now, what I really like about this gun is that the shape of the grip really encourages you to kind of get behind the pistol, which a lot of people kind of rotate more off to the side. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but the shape of the gun and the grip really encourages good mechanics in getting behind the pistol, which is something to be applauded. Now that said, that comes with a downside, as I think folks with smaller hands, now I wear size large gloves, I have my trigger reach in double action is pretty good, but I could see people with smaller hands having an issue there. Ultimately, I really like the way the gun feels in the hand. It feels very good and it encourages good mechanics when you go shoot it. Now, as far as the grip texture is concerned, the back of the grip is pretty aggressive right there. It's almost like checkering. The checkering on the front strap, I mean, it's there. It's also on the trigger guard, but it's not really aggressive. And the side panels are moderately aggressive, better than most polymer guns for sure by a wide margin. But all of the texture on the pistol is better than what you're going to find on a typical duty style polymer gun. As far as reaching, all the other controls are concerned, the slide release is right there. It's very small, almost melted into the grip, so it's very difficult for you to ride, and the decocker is right there. So the operation of the decocker is very good. It does what it's supposed to do. The slide release is right there. It makes it difficult to push it up because it is so melted into the gun, but it is where you'd want it to be to drop the slide into battery. And of course, the magazine release is rather large, positive. It's got good texture on it, makes it easy to drop mags. So all of the controls combined, I was able to shoot this from the holster very easily. It's very easy to get a good grip on this gun in the holster due to its size. Now, as far as the trigger itself is concerned, it is a metal trigger with a very broad trigger shoe with a bit of a gentle rolling kind of curve there. It's not as sharp as like the face of a Glock trigger, which has that big hump on it. And it's pretty easy to shoot. And the profile of the trigger is pretty easy to shoot well. I didn't have any issues getting straight to the rear trigger pulls based on the geometry of the trigger. As far as the double action is concerned, it is long, but it is predictable. That's a little bit stagey, but if you pull the trigger fast, it's very easy. Double action coming in on my Lyman trigger scale is right at 7 pounds on a 5-pull average. So that's not bad. It's very predictable. It doesn't stack. It's just straight to the rear and you go. So 7 pounds on a double action is pretty good. Now, when you put it in single action, what you end up getting is a good bit of slack, as you can see right there on the trigger. Then you hit a hard wall and then you pull, and then once you hit almost 3 pounds of pressure, it's going to release. And while the brake is very good, it's a very high quality brake, where the gun really shines is the reset. And if you watch this, that's all you need right there on reset. Now, there is a good bit of slack in the single action trigger, as you see, and I'm on a wall there, and then almost no over travel. The character of this trigger is very good. Most guns don't come close to this level of refinement in the trigger. And as far as the pre-travel in the single action, guys, that's a really good feature for duty for people who kind of trigger check. It gives you just a little bit of movement, and then that nice hard wall that gives you a very predictable thing to bear down against as you try and eke out extreme accuracy. Now, the reset is not going to throw your finger forward like a Glock pistol does, so it's not going to rebound your finger off the trigger. And realistically, if you're shooting this gun fast, you're not going to ride the reset. You're going to come all the way off and all the way on. But it honestly is very easy to take the slack out of the trigger. It is a very shootable trigger. Now, as far as the finish is concerned, there have been many complaints from people about the finish wearing, and my buddy initially picked this gun up for USPSA competition, and it did wear out around the trigger guard where the holster retains the gun, which surprises me because the holster that he let me borrow for this gun doesn't fit the gun really well. I'd expect to see more muzzle wear on this pistol based on how ill-fitting the holster is, but there isn't really any muzzle wear. It's actually holding up okay. So I know that that is a concern online, but this particular example, which has had plenty of holster wear, is really only showing on the trigger guard, which is acceptable. All in all, it still looks like a pretty new gun, and I know he shot this particular gun a good bit, and I put a few hundred. So as far as suitability for competition or gun games is concerned, it's a great pistol. It can do very well in IDPA SSP or USPSA production division. The only thing holding it back is the mag well is not beveled around the frame really to speak of. It's just a very, very small hole in the grip that you have to throw the magazines into. So you'd have to practice your reloads a lot, but that's probably the biggest single drawback about using this pistol in competition. Another big upside to using this pistol in competition is the aftermarket support is already there. You can get anything you need. Magazines are inexpensive for this pistol, and you've got plenty of holster options available to you as well, which is obviously important, especially in competition. That all said, the P226 really isn't popular in competition. I haven't seen somebody shooting one of these in USPSA maybe ever. I've seen one in IDPA before from a guy who just shot a bunch of SIGs because he loves SIG. But as far as just being a gamer gun and having a lot of people do it, I don't see it happening, which the gun's a great gun. I honestly don't understand why it's not more popular. That is until I consider that price thing again. So this thing is tipping the scales at about $1,320. The CZ Shadow 2, which competes head-to-head against it, is coming in about $200 less, and many features that are actually better for competition. So I think this is kind of relegated to sort of a niche gun for somebody who's potentially going to carry it, use it for home defense, duty use in the terms of a policeman, or potentially duty use. And honestly, the upstart from the Sig Sauer lineup, the P320 X5 Legion, is wildly more popular than many other guns, including this one. So if you're considering the P226 Legion, I'd say, yeah, go for the Legion if you're going to get a P226. I mean, it's the best of all worlds as far as the Legion is concerned. Only other gun I would potentially consider over this would be the 226 Stainless Elite if you can handle nickel-plated sissy pistols like I like. And if you've made it this far, please hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know you watched the video. I love interacting with you guys down there. So I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care, guys.